Hey everyone, and welcome to another meeting of the Tropical Rum Society. As always, I'm Matt, and yes, I did get a haircut, thanks for noticing. Today we're looking at our darkest rum yet. It's so dark, in fact, that it's actually considered a black rum. It's also well known around the world for a famous rum cocktail that we'll speak about later. We're looking at Gosling's Black Seal Bermuda Black Rum. There's plenty to get through with this one, so let's get straight into it. The Goslings company actually started out a little bit unintentionally back in 1806. James Gosling set sail for America with a ship full of merchandise, but on the way there his charter expired, which meant he had to go and pull into a different port, so he stopped off in Bermuda. Instead of then making his way from Bermuda to America, Gosling actually stayed there and opened up shop. After some growth, the Gosling company started renting a place in Hamilton, Bermuda, and that was way back in 1824, but they're still using that place today. So the famous Gosling Black Seal rum is 40% ABV, which makes it 80 proof. It's made of a blend of pot and column still rums that are blended together and then aged in ex-bourbon barrels. And it's also really well known for being a primary ingredient of a dark and stormy. There's actually a little bit of controversy about that name of that drink though, because Goslings has had it trademarked since 1991, which means that you can only legally make a dark and stormy if you use Goslings as your rum for it. Originally, you could only get this rum in barrels direct from the distiller, or you could bring along your own bottle to their store and they would fill it up for you. But eventually, as the rum grew in demand, they started taking empty champagne bottles from the British officers' mess because bottles were in scarce supply, and they would fill those empty bottles with the rum. So where do you think the name Black Seal comes from? Do you think maybe the black seal that's on the label? Well, you would be wrong. Maybe the color of the rum itself, because it's really dark and really black. Again, you would be wrong. The name comes from the fact that Goslings would actually dip those reused champagne bottles into black wax to seal them. Hence the name Black Seal, and the black seal on the label actually came much later. Speaking of the label, it's probably one of the cutest that I've seen. The seal there balancing that rum on its nose looks like it's having a great time, and the label is classy yet approachable. Also, just as a side note, when I originally got this bottle, it was filled all the way up, so it looked like the glass was actually like a black tinted glass. But now that I've had some of the rum, and by some I mean more than half, you can see that the bottle's actually clear glass and it's just the rum itself that's super dark in color. So speaking of that color, I think let's get some in the glass and see what it looks like in there. So we'll just give it a little bit of a pour, and that's probably enough so that we don't overdo it. So we can see now that there's a little bit more light that's able to pass through it. It's not that complete black that you see in the bottle. It's got more of a reddish brown tinge. It's still very, very dark in there, but there's definitely some redness, a little bit of gold around the edges, but primarily it is still a very dark color. And I think it's fair to say that this color is not entirely coming from aging. There's probably some caramel or some molasses that's been mixed into this to get it that dark, but whatever they're doing, I like the look of it. It's really cool. This one is very pungent on the nose. It's really strong and just kind of fills your nostrils entirely with smells. It's very sweet, very heavy on those kind of treacle and molasses flavors. It's a little bit of butterscotch vibe as well. The tiniest hint of spices in there, but they're really being overpowered by that kind of sweeter side of things. It smells almost thick, like you can almost sense the denseness of this just by sniffing it. This is really reminding me kind of like a Jamaican rum with its bold, heavy, funky kind of smell. So I don't think this would be the kind of rum that you would want to start out with if you're just beginning a rum journey. It is dense, it's strong. It starts out kind of soft and mellow, and it's got kind of vanilla and caramel and sweetness to it. Then after that, it begins to unfold into a little bit more spice, a little bit more warmth. Now that I've been sitting here for a bit, it's really got quite a long finish as well. A little bit bitter and woody to that finishing note, but really quite nice. It seems to be quite balanced. There's nothing really sharp or pronounced that's jumping out at me at any point. But that being said, it's also pretty linear in its journey. It's pleasant to sip, but it kind of seems like it's meant more for mixing because it doesn't really have a huge deal of complexity to it. So there you go, Gosling's Black Seal Bermuda Black Rum. Too many times I've had to say that. It's a very, very strong tongue twister. Give it a go yourself. It's big, it's bold, it's very tasty, and I can see why it's stuck around for such a long time. I'd highly recommend you grab a bottle, have a taste of it, and let me know what you think about that. Mix it into a dark and stormy, and you can actually call it that because it's Goslings. Let me know what you think of that as well. And in the meanwhile, I'm going to go put this bottle on the shelf, finish this off, and I will see you in the next meeting.